Hello, this is Brian Foster on Kardak Radio, presenting the program Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us.
Hello, on this August 5th, 2018, we are going to have an exciting program this afternoon. We are at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, all time zones in between and all around the world. We have listeners from all around the world listening to us, Europe, America, South America, etc. So it's exciting. Now, what are we talking about? Why am I saying it's going to be exciting? We're talking about future events, the future of the earth. First, let me start us off here. We are talking about Spiritism. These are future events. This is the future of the earth as given to Spiritist mediums. And of course, Spiritism was created in the 1850s by Allan Kardec. This is the Gospel According to Spiritism. This is a wonderful book. This book gives you a lot of information of which you weren't sure about when you read the Bible, like let the dead bury the dead and all sorts of other sayings that were in parables, but were a bit hard to understand, at least for me, maybe not for other people. Of course, this is the really main book to read, the Spirits book. I would recommend this to everybody. Of course, these two books I just showed, you can get those on PDF. So you can either find them on the bookstore, on my site. There's a link to it on the EDICI bookstore. You can just click on his picture, Allan Kardec, and it will take you there. You can find, and also you can also find all of Allan Kardec's books on Amazon. But again, you can get them for free. That's how I found Allan Kardec, on PDF. Now tonight, what we're talking about the section of in this book, how we are guided by spirits, the future of the earth. And when we talk about the future of the earth, we're not talking about, okay, this is going to happen at this date, this is going to happen at that date. We're going to talk about more than that. We're actually going to talk about how the future is constructed. Because the information given to us by spirits talking to the Reverend Vale Owen in the early 1900s is just reveals so much more than just, at some date this will happen, or the next thing will happen, or will become, there will be famine and wars, etc. And that's just kind of the noise, really. It's what I want to explore, not only what the ultimate future of the earth is in the next couple of programs, and we'll start in this program, but actually how the future is created. What do they think? What's the process of guiding us here on humans? Hi, Sergio. So first, there's certain things we know for certain, right? The earth will become a planet of regeneration. Famine, wars, economic devastation, poverty will eventually be eradicated. Hate, selfishness, and jealousy shall become greatly reduced or eliminated. Christ, following the commands of God to raise the earth to the next level, will not fail. The earth will become a paradise. So what does this mean? This does not mean that all of us will rise with the planet. A portion of incarnate and discarnate spirits who have ignored and resisted the urge to follow the light and instead have held on to the material leanings and used their brethren for their own selfish desires, they shall be removed from the earth and sent to another planet, befitting their character and attitude. They will be given another chance to learn, while those remaining will reside in a just and equitable society, free of the fear and chaos we have today. Now, this is the future. It will occur. When and how it unfolds is the subject of the communications analyzed in the next couple of programs, and including this program. The time frame was not revealed to us. Now, you'll see many people say, oh, this is going to happen this year, it's going to happen next year. What I have found out is that to associate exact times, like, the 15th of December, this, is very perilous. And it usually is, and as I've been told in messages, is from the spirit worlds, our time is not your time. And that's why you don't see many messages saying, Eva, hello from Brazil. That's why you don't see things like, well, on August 5th, we're going to have this volcano going or something like that. It usually does not work that way. It doesn't mean it's not possible. I'm sure if the spirit world wanted to do something at a certain date, they could, but you will usually see that, when people think about things, of course, when we are told things, we always think it's going to happen today, right? Because we are humans and we want everything to happen quick. That's why you always see, these people saying, well, no, the apocalypse will happen, in this year or that year, or this was going to happen. And usually it doesn't, right? But it doesn't mean it won't. It just means that we don't understand. And our time frame, just now, always think of this, our time frame is so small. We live what, 80 years approximately? I mean, that's nothing in the billions of years of the earth, the thousands, the tens of thousands of years of human history, and of course, the immortality of our spirits. So we will be planet regeneration. It will occur, right? And the time frame is not revealed to us. How many more centuries do each of us have to earn a ticket for the transition is unclear. But saying that, many spiritists, myself included, believe that we are now in the beginning of the first phase of transition. Forces are being marshaled to begin a spiritual transformation of the planet. And it's not only just spiritists. I hear many different, Sarah Troy, other people who call themselves, spiritualists or mediums, are not exactly spiritist mediums, believe that we are in a transition period. I agree with that. And in past enlightened emissaries of Jesus, such as Socrates and Buddha, will return to the earth in physical form to lead us. There's a lot, what I've heard is there's a lot of very high, powerful spirits that's made an impact on our society, the whole human society in the past, that will return to earth. Now, in this whole construct, we are now, and I think everyone can agree, we are really in a very materialistic phase. And so the pendulum will be swinging from spirituality, from materialism to spirituality. Now, the pendulum right now, I believe, to materialism is close to reaching its apex. We may not be there, but it's very close. I think people are just, it's being sold to the commercial life. All that is just so pounding us all the time that people are seeing that there's an emptiness of life based upon consumerism and relative morality, which will contribute to a longing to fill a void of the soul. Many people are seeing that right now. As humans programmed by the spirit world to seek out a greater meaning to our lives, we can't withdraw forever from the concept of God. And therefore, our culture will undergo a dramatic transformation, which is required for the coming physical transformation of the earth. The arc of the pendulum will begin to move back to the spirituality, but without the ignorance and prejudices of the Middle Ages. Sans the rigid dogma and ceremonies which serve to limit the intellectual curiosity of those who think others to give them all the answers. This is the major difference between most visions of Earth's future. Many visions, they end in monumental catastrophes, either by asteroids, climate change, massive famine, or a combination of earthquakes and volcanic activity, or legions of spirits fighting between good and evil. According to Spiritism, and especially you'll read this in the Gospel according to Spiritism, you'll read this in the Spirit's book, the earth doesn't change in a flash, but over a long, extended period. What is required for the transition isn't physical, but spiritual. Now, the contours of the earth may stay steady and evolve over time, but the harmonic vibrations from collective humanity will rise together to cause drastic changes. Alterations measured in hundreds, if not thousands of years. While the earth may seem to be a giant mass with a molten core, mantles, and crust, hard and heavy and unchangeable, it is in reality created and held in place by the force of will of high spirits. The earth is susceptible to dominating vibrations and thoughts. As billions of humans raise their awareness and are in tune with the spirit realm and all that implies, the earth, and humans too, will become less dense and more ethereal. Only then shall the first phase of the future be attained. So hence, the visions of the future brought to us by different spirits communicating with the Reverend Vale Owen aren't images of tidal waves and lost cities, but of new ideas, new cultural norms, and new structures and organizations, which will be identifiable results in the sea change of human society. So now let's talk about how all this is created. And I'm gonna I want to present to people, and I think this is it may not be as exciting, but I think it's extremely exciting when you learn this from Vale Owen. And this is telling us how they guide us individually and collectively. Because to really understand that, you understand why the human race has gone through these cycles. And it's not necessarily a cycle of achievement and then this destruction. So let's talk about this. This was revealed to the Reverend Vale. We actually go through cycles of progress, material and spiritual. The spirit realm guides us individually and collectively. Unbeknownst to us, there is a grand plan for all of humanity, but it is not a straight line or an upward curved line of progress. So it doesn't go perfectly straight, and it's not, the hockey puck curve we see so much. We move forward, but we move forward on a spiral. Now, the spiral concept is stated over and over again to the spirits who talk to the Reverend Vale Owen. If you look even within the atom itself, it rotates around the core, right? The protons, electrons rotate around the core, and those are even spirals. Everything is like that. You can look at the spiral of the contour, the progress of the Earth around the sun. So we who live in the present and see our path from behind us, we see a narrow perspective. We see progress, decline, and progress again. We see movement ahead, and at times, whole cultures declining into the dark ages. We believe that a span of 1,000 years is practically an eternity. So we have to broaden our horizon, we have to broaden our field of view and see what we take as sliding into chaos is really a form of progress and renewal, a gathering point to make humanity ready for the next great leap forward. So to peer into the future, we must analyze our past. But our analysis is flawed, for we aren't able to peer into the entire past of humanity. For such destruction was wrought to cultures long ago, that we have only distant myths to enlighten us. And we must realize the Earth is but one point in the universe, that our destiny and trajectory is connected to the entire physical universe and the will of the spirit universe. So, a lot of this was contained in the messages to the Reverend Vale Owen from the Spirit Arnell. It was on Friday, March 22nd, 1918, concerning progress on Earth, in the universe, and how the great lords of creation have attempted to shorten the path to perfection. This is what was told the Reverend Vale Owen. I'm quoting now. There were at that time, so long ago, some who had in mind to take a shorter path to perfection, and others who chose a longer one. These two groups did not clash exactly, but the variety of their endeavors overlapped somewhat, and the confusion which ensued has caused all that man today call evil. All things are working towards perfection, but so great is the field of activity that the period must necessarily be long, if you count it in days and years. As viewed by those who stand in God his presence, it is neither short nor long, but one continuous event, as a river, when considered as a unit, embraces the whole from source to sea. So this takes us back to a very high level, not just the top of the mountain, but this is the top of the galaxy, right? If you look at that, this is how you must look at Earth as this little speck. What Arnell is telling us, that Earth's revolution has told the story of the remnants of quick evolutionary species, which proved in the end to be inadequate manifestations. On the other hand, they were useful in setting up the stage for the next great leap. Therefore, the spiral shape of progress, one species or an entire ecology, progresses and dominates, but can only reach a certain plateau, whereupon they must be discarded. Arnell supplies examples of the growth of the dinosaurs and even the extremely large mammals that we uncover as ancient fossils, as proof of the destruction and subsequent rise of a superior replacement. Now, knowing this, we should not assume that we are the plateau of everything, right? We are a species that just happen to be the latest, right? So there will be more. They've even said this will be more. We as humans stand upon the platform of all the animals that have come before us. Only by experimentation, learning through failures and successes, were we able to be thusly constructed. Darwin, in his book Origin of the Species, saw the struggle and deemed nature to be the guiding hand. But there's also the invisible orchestration by the spirit realm in facilitating our planet's major periods, making subtle changes in our DNA to push natural selection to perform its duty. So Arnell didn't limit his thesis to attempts to shorten the evolutionary ladder of intelligent animals. He included the grueling climb of our spiritual perfection as well. Everything is interrelated. This is what he tells us. Now, the further principle of which I speak is this. This course of development shall take a twofold line of direction. That direction shall first be outward from unity into diversity of expression, as we have already explained, but also along with this line of movement shall go its twin, which is that progress shall take the direction from the spiritual ever toward the material. It is like two runners running their course side by side. The one is named from unity into diversity, and the other is named from spirit into matter. These two must keep pace together. Neither must be allowed to outstrip the other, for they run not to win, except they win the outward goal together. So let's think about what he said. From the seed of a microbe, the diverse life of planet was hatched, right? Different insects, plants, wild animals, higher intelligent mammals were constructed. As soul-bearing dominant humans progressed in form, so they should progress in spiritual knowledge. From spirit into matter isn't the final objective. It is an important goal, one that must be reached when the level of body and civilization is ready. It is the connection of mankind's fascination with materialism with the expansion of the spirit-willed physical universe. So Arnell explains further. There were those who schemed to shorten this course by arresting the tendency untimely, before the whole outward course had been run, and turning again the urge of creative life inward towards spirit, before the outermost post had been reached and rounded. So let me stop there for a second. So we really have to get to this material plateau before we really start then understanding the spiritual as much. The early human race, right? The tribal, they were very spiritual. They didn't have much technology, but it kind of means that we have to get up into technology and then come back to spirituality again. I'll continue the quote. That post is the material expression of an inner manifestation of a still deeper cycle of development, behind which there are those lords of creation who, by their willful energizing, guide the great fleet of our sun systems in their constellations on its voyage through the space of matter toward the port where they shall bend their course round again and homeward once again. So, what did he just say? This is where the logic and speech of high spirits become difficult to penetrate. Arnell's speech of the general universe, at the same time, he's speaking of our progress on earth. In the spirit realm, everything is tied into everything else. Everything is connected. As we make progress as an individual spirit, so does humanity progresses. So does our solar system. So does our galaxy, our universe. There are spirals within spirals within spirals, and so on. To those learned and wise spirits in the upper reaches of heaven, circling the earth, they see one small part of an intricate mechanical pocket watch. Visualize with small gears gating larger ones and hands spinning at different speeds, but when looked upon from the front, all makes sense. While we humans locked in our bulky physical bodies are imprisoned in one of the gears, peering out, observing an indescribable complexity. Arnell explains to the Reverend G. Vale Owen that providing material progress to humankind and human-like souls in other planets too early in their progress has unforeseen consequences, and that civilizations have had to be reset to put harmony in the physical and spiritual journeys of immature spirits. Now, this is a part I think is very exciting to everyone. So Arnell tells us, this is a message given to Reverend G. Vale Owen in the early 1900s, that we too, humans, have been too technically advanced in relation to our spiritual progress in the past. The destructions of Atlantis and Lemuria attest to that. He implies that at some point in the far and distant past, humans reached the material plateau, but they weren't ready to embark on the road to reclaim their spirituality. But now we may be ready. Think about that. So when you've read things from other mediums talking about Atlantis or Lemuria, humans were at that point. We were actually pretty evolved at a certain time. Edgar Casey is the big one in American medium that talked a lot about Atlantis, 40, 50,000 years ago. So now let's follow a nail some more. This is what he said. To be clear, my meaning for you, the ocean is the realm of being expressed in outward expansion of the mind of the infinite and ultimate one. This is when he's talking about the fleet going towards materiality, so it can come back to spirituality. So he's talking about, so he's talking, what is this on? So he says the ocean is the realm of being expressed in the outward expansion of the mind of the infinite and ultimate one. So we all exist on this ocean of God has created all the rules, the divine force of nature. The fleet is that universe which was brought into existence at his command and by the creative lords of whom I spoke. The port to which the outward course is that which you find yourself today, meaning going towards ultimate materialism. The homeward course is that which you are now tending. So he seems to be saying that we are starting to round, right, the buoy. For the outermost point has been reached and is just being rounded. It is the rounding of that point. It is the turning of the vessels out of the harbor of material inertia towards the more active element of the open sea, which is the cause of so much unrest in all directions at the present time. Soon the sails will fill and set steadily athwart the hulls. The vessels will settle down to their homeward course, and both officers and crews, now homeward bound, will be of cheery disposition, and ever as the fleet plows through the ocean of being, near and near will it come to the port from which it set out so many ages ago. And gladness and peace will gather about them as they go for the welcome which awaits them, a port far away into the east where the light is already breaking and the smile of God is seen. So he's saying that we are on this course, and we've been on this course, and we've actually been in civilizations, Atlantis and Lemuria, that have had going towards, this technical materialism type plateau. And in the past, we've had to be destroyed. So no, okay, your technological advance is too much for your spirituality and your spiritual maturity. Okay. I don't know. I mean, to many people, we are that again, right? We have the atomic bomb, we have atomic weapons. Are we mature enough to handle that? A lot of people debate that subject. But he says that it looks like we are now, and we are going to round back into a more balance between spirituality and materialism. Now, he sent that to us in 1918. The First World War was ending. The Second World War was only 21 years in the future. The beginnings of the age of the internet was only a little more than 60 years ahead when he sent that message in 1918 to Reverend Vale Owen. The entire collective humanity on Earth went through massive destruction right during this time frame, illustrating the capacity of the dark side of technology. Then one more push, starting in the 50s, of invention of material wealth. All the while, a large portion of humanity have had a sense of something lacking, a hole, a missing spiritual component to our lives. The 60s were a reaction to the consumer tidal wave, but being based on no firm foundation other than freedom from everything, it eventually succumbed, right? Parallel to material growth, our culture has rejected even the tiniest demonstration of faith, a set of divine laws from God that should govern our moral compass to always point to love, charity, fraternity, and honor. Instead, what do we have now? We have this culture of relative morality based on a wholly material world with no sense of an immortal spirit. Hence, we only live to seek pleasure. Counterintuitively, our very advance carries the seeds of shaking our materialist platform, awakening the world to the existence of another plane, the spirit world. The internet, that device which spreads opportunities to buy instant gratification, also serves to gather like-minded people to discuss their faith, their spirituality, their near-death experiences, their stories of unexplained phenomena, and the ability to plan collective efforts to others in need of help. The great Brazilian medium, Francisco C. Xavier, told his acquaintances that the World Wide Web will open up the doctrine of spiritism to the planet. People will discover Allan Kardec and other spiritist writers, so they may fully understand their place on earth and the meaning of life. So what you see so much is when the spirit world gives us something, you go, oh, that's horrible. But in that, so many times in that horribleness, there's another seed that something's going to break out of it. So I think in summary, Arnell is placing this, and this is back in 1918. Now we're 100 years later. I think we're at the top. I'd like to, So many times we fool ourselves, so I'm always careful about that. But we are close to the apogee of materialism. And he believes we are leaving that port, the place of buying and selling goods. Now remember also 100 years, that's 100 years. That's nothing, right? That's what we always have to understand about when people bring prophecy and what's going to happen is the timing. You never know about the timing. So I think we're leaving that port. I think we're rounding that place of buying and selling goods and embarking into a different ship, which will lead us to balance our material with the spiritual. Now, let's give examples of spiral progress so we can get a better understanding. So I think the sinking of the continent of Atlantis provides a good example of a culture with advanced technology, but not the spiritual maturity to manage it. There are more recent demonstrations of entire societies allowed to practically, oh, hello, Luis, allowed to practically disappear in order to rise up once again with a different perspective. So let's talk about these. And these are probably the smaller areas. I think Lemurian Atlantis is a big example, but I want to give an example that we kind of know more, right? So one can detect the hand of the spirit realm in the collapse of civilization in the 13th to 12th century BC, also known as the late Bronze Age collapse, or the invasion of the sea people. I don't know if anybody studied this, but I find this fascinating. During that time, entire cultures were wiped out. Minoans, Mycenaeans, Trojans, Hittites, and Babylonians. Only the Egyptians survived intact, but even it declined after the experience. Historians are still attempting to piece together what could have caused such a general rout of the ancient empires. The simple explanation of an outside invasion doesn't do the practical erasure of long-lived societies justice. Another example, the spirit world also took hand in the destruction of Rome, as reported in the book Psychograph by Chico Xavier in 1939. Emmanuel, Chico's spirit mentor and author of the book, On the Way to the Light, a great book. I recommend that book. Is just amazing. Explain what happened to Rome. So, as a background, remember, if you look at in the micro level, each of us has a guardian angel, do we not? Right? We have spirit mentors and people look after us. So do organizations, so do countries, right? They all have people looking at them, and everything's based upon cause and effect, action and reaction, karma. You can call it whatever you want. So let's look at this on a broader scale of what happened to Rome. This is what Emmanuel wrote. The Roman Empire could have affected the founding of a soul state on the planet due to the marvelous unity it achieved, and thanks to the effort and watch care from on high. But instead, it disappeared into a sea of ruins after its wars, aberrations, and circuses filled with wild beasts and gladiators. The enormous organism began rotting away in the open sores opened by the negligence and impiety of its children. And when the palliative of mercy from selfish and compassionate spirits was no longer possible due to the galvanization of the overall sentiment on the broad table of earthly excesses and pleasure, suffering was called in to reestablish the fundamentals of truth in souls. Nothing was left of the proud city of the emperors except piles of stone. Under the last expiation and suffering, guilty spirits changed their garments in order to revolve and redeem themselves in the infinite scenery of life. While many of them continued to weep in redemptive suffering, the sad and lamenting winds of the night mourn over the ruins of Vespasian's Colosseum. So what's he saying? The theme of what he was saying is that raw power, with the backing of technology and superior organization, can and will dominate other groups. But with power without kindness and compassion for conquered subjects or allies will eventually cause the spirit world to withdraw its support, thereby initiating a decline. The advanced technology within the guidance of spiritual maturity in its use will result in tragedy. Haven't we seen that whole cycle of history? A country just expands, Germany in World War II, the communist empire, right? All if they expand, they are horrible to people. The Cambodia, right, with the Pol Pot, the communist Pol Pot killed 6 million of its, or 2 or 3 million of its own people, and then they collapse, right, because it's so horrible. But this tragedy can be looked at but one curve of the spiral, right? So people learn from that. People learn that the Soviet Union, gulags, the communist Chinese. I mean, how many people did they start with? 20, 30 million people. So it helps society learn about these things. And remember, as people live through this and die, they go to the spirit world and they come back and they have that intuition. They have that intuition in their minds, right? They understand. They may not consciously understand, but subconsciously they'll understand that this society, which is going to be dominated, right, by communism or socialism, where the government tells you to do everything, is not a good idea. Now, so it lets us learn these things, right? And remember, we're not just on Earth for one time. We learn. I mean, who knows what I had done, right? We learn from life after life. Now, do we recall these memories perfectly? No, but we have our instincts and our conscience, right? So from the ashes, when we are involved with these things, we can be reborn. We understand better that that's not a good idea. And while history can be viewed as an invention and loss of intellectual property, the intermediate growth of spirituality by the waves of reincarnation by spirits who once led great empires, now toiling on a farm, set up a subsequent growth better grounded in morality. So one can see from Rome, where slaves outnumbered freemen, to the rise of European powers, where slavery was eventually abolished. Certainly, there are still cruelties and injustice, but on the whole, successive governments, organizations were more inclusive and just to its citizens. In the 19th century, Europe made great strides in government institutions, but their history of colonization was a black mark. Emmanuel, once again on the way to light, states, condemned to irreversible sentences for social and political crimes, European dominance will disappear forever like the Roman Empire, handing over to the Americas the fruit of the experiences with a view to the civilization of the future. So the spirit realm had already planned the destruction of European powers even before World War II had begun. The spiral of history continues. So this is why it's so, to understand the spiral of history really should tell you that our progress through the future isn't going to be one or two events. Even as we're on that line to become a planet of regeneration, it's not going to be a straight line. We're going to go through ups and downs and learnings. And so Arnell told the Reverend Vale Owen that we are headed back to a renewed spirituality that's in harmony with our progress, and it won't be done under the leadership of Europe. Emmanuel told us the same thing, and the baton has been passed to the Americas. Now, in the book Psychograph in 1947 by Chico Xavier, written by the spirit Henri Louise, Henri reports in a lecture by a learned spirit, and he tells us of our collective path to become better souls. This is what was said in this lecture. This is why all the writings by Chico Xavier is so interesting, because you get these little things and it helps you understand and piece together how all, history is, how we are guided, right? We're not just left alone just to do whatever we're doing, and as we will be guided. This is what the lecture said. How long have we done and undone, finished and started over on the reparative journey, only to return perplexed once more at the beginning? On the terrestrial stage, we are the same actors of an evolutionary drama. Each millennia is a short act, each century a brief scene. Even though we inhabit sacred bodies, we act like carefree children who are entertained only by child's play, and we lose the sanctifying opportunities of our existences. Thus, we become reprobates of the sovereign laws, ensnared in the ruins of death like shipwrecked pirates, who for a long time are unworthy of sailing the seas once again. While millions of souls enjoy good opportunities of correction and readjustment, once more involved in regenerative efforts, in Earth cities, millions of others mourn the defeat, lost in dismal delusionment and suffering. So what does it mean by that, right? So to make it simpler, it's like he's saying the entire student body of the campus, called Earth, because that's what Earth really is. It's a campus, and we are the students on that campus, has had to take and retake the same courses over and over again. Each time, the expectation is that we are to learn to become a bit more empathetic, a little more loving, and expanding our caring and fraternal instincts. Now, people look at our world today, we're just as bad as we were before. Well, I think we're a little bit better. Eusebio asked, this lecturer, whose name is Eusebio, asked the audience, this is what he asked: how long will we be masterminds of destruction and wickedness instead of loyal servants to the Lord of life? We have been soldiers of the armies of illusion, leaving behind millions of tombs open under a torrent of ash and smoke. In vain, Christ has exhorted us to seek the manifestations of the Father within us. We nurture and expand only selfishness and ambition, vanity, and fantasy. We continue to incur onerous moral debts and enslave ourselves to the sad outcomes of our deeds, lingering indefinitely in a crop of thorns. In such a state, we have reached the modern era, which madness is widespread and men's and women's mental stability is on the verge of disaster. With an involved brain and immature heart, we hone our art of wrecking our spiritual progress. So, a bit damning. But Eusebio notifies that we shall stay on this merry-go-round until we deserve our way off. And this all goes in the fact that we go into elliptical orbit in life after life on a spiral upward trend. It is up to us when we make the decision to exit. We just have to earn it. Now, I remember Chico one time was saying, when they say, how many people, actually when they get rid of this physical body, go to heaven? And I believe he said about 30%, 3 out of 10. So I would like to have someone ever tell me, what was it back during Christ's time? Was it 2 out of 10? Was it 1 out of 10? Or was it better? My intuition says that we've gotten better. Now, 30% isn't that, to us, it should be higher than that. But it's not bad, considering when you see the society around us, where even people who act good are really still tied materially. That doesn't mean they're not good people. I don't want to say that, but I'm just saying their priorities are complete materialistic, and their loves are guided by materialism. And those people who are good people and they're just going by the culture, they are certainly will become better as life after life takes them, to ascend. So, and this is what kind of the whole impetus of what I want to say is that we're all part of this culture, right? We all must do our part to improve our culture, to bring the knowledge that we never die, that we exist again and again in the great endeavor to become a perfect spirit. We are making our own future, and we are being guided towards a distinct future, but we are in control of the timing. And only by raising our collective harmony can we earn the right to ascend, right? The future isn't just a cataclysmic event ordained by God. It is a series of waves of changes brought to us by painstaking planning of individual lives, cultures, and nations. So now I also want to explain, okay, so how are, externally now more how this happens. How do they move us, right? And so therefore, but from what I just said now, I just want you to think of the future as not being a specific date or occurrence, but as a journey, a long transformation, which may last 1,000 years. So start thinking in those terms. Now, have you noticed that groups of people on Earth tend to share the same longing, right? The same urges towards their common goal. The Renaissance was one collective gasp of intellectual freedom from the bounds of the Catholic Church. It seemed to occur organically, but unbeknownst to humanity, the spirit realm sends out signals, subtle pushes to our minds and emotional state to begin to move us in one direction or another. So as an example, according to Spirit Manual, in the book On the Way to the Light that I talked about before, the Renaissance was planned by the spirit realm to set the human race onto a new path. And I'm talking about this is because when I just said, people like Buddha and Socrates and other people that made dramatic influences and probably more hidden influences that we don't know, but they probably were substantial, are becoming to be reincarnated. This is what's happening to us right now. You have to look at the earth as a chessboard, and pieces are taking off, right? Let's say there's a great cataclysm and many people die. Well, those pieces, if you look at them as pieces on the chessboard, they did not die. They're just moved off the board called Earth. They can be moved back on the board when and where it is essential to change the future of the Earth. And let's give an example of that. So when Emmanuel said the Renaissance was planned by the spirit realm to set the human race on the new path, this is what he said. At the dawn of the 15th century, When the medieval era was about to end, large assemblies of spirits met in the vicinities of the planet to direct regenerative movements, which in light of Christ's determinations would lead the world to a new era. The entire regenerative effort took place under his merciful, compassionate gaze as he poured out all his light on the hearts. Devoted messengers reincarnated on the orb to carry out loving and redemptive missions. So not only did they place important pieces in areas of the board, they also kind of focused on the earth this longing, this collective longing to say, no, we need to break out of this dark age, right? And become intellectually more aware. They're actually leading us and guiding us to be this onto this era of exploration and invention. Now, according to the message from the Spirit Arnell, a similar event occurred around the turn from the 19th century to the 20th century. And this message to the Reverend G. Vale was dated March 8th, 1919. Arnell told G. Vale in his previous messages about the long journey of mankind towards material progress, what I just talked about before. So now, since he presented a new journey that shall begin, it will, as we're rounding that post, it will awaken spiritual forces and emotions that have been lost for thousands of years. This is what he's saying. The trend of human development has been downward and onward and toward into matter. That was God, his purpose, namely that he manifests himself in detail of form phenomenally, because this way was downward set, and the elements of air increase in greater measure than the reservoir of spirit in which they were poured from earth was able to absorb, assimilate, and transmute. It was therefore necessary that on our way to earth we clarify these spheres, and this we did preparatory to our more intensified operations on earth itself. What's he saying? So Arnell and other spirits describe the progress of humankind as well as individuals to be a spiral, remember? So progress is made, but sometimes through a dramatic event or an invasion for a country or a rancorous divorce for a person, it seems that all forward movement was lost, but it wasn't. For the episode actually created a firmer foundation to launch the next round of progress. When Arnell speaks about the elements of air, not just on Earth, but in the surrounding regions, he well knows that psychic emanations affect discarnates and incarnates alike, that sometimes the rays flowing from our thoughts need to be tuned. There's actually a great example of this in the book No Solar, when during the No Solar, I think it was written in 1939, I think it was published, they were talking about the beginnings of World War II and how that was, they needed to guard themselves against the psychic emanations, right? Because so many people were thinking dark thoughts. And so, again, that's another, and actually, even when I heard during World War II, other planets in our solar system said, no, okay, you got to kind of wall off the Earth. There's just so much bad thoughts coming from there. It's affecting all of us. So, thought is real. As I said, many other talks before, thought is real, right? Thought is action in the spirit world. That's why we have to tune our thoughts. We have to discipline our thoughts. So in this case, the entire human race has been pushed to advance their technology, which for a short term meant that a material outlook pushed out the spiritual side of life. And this is an imbalance that was allowed to exist so Earth society could reach where it was guided. Now, and by now it could mean starting hundreds of years ago, for the changes are subtle indeed, the human race is being herded back to experience a collective longing for spirituality. And I think many of you probably informally have experienced that. And if you look on YouTube and other places, you'll see other people talking about that. And yet, but you have to think of moving the humans on Earth as like a mile-long supertanker. From the moment the helm is turned, the noticeable change in direction is extremely lengthy. We, living around for 80 years in our physical bodies at a time, we don't have the field of view long enough to decipher alterations in course. Arnell tells us that this guiding is constant and unrelenting. This is what he says. Always Earth is operated on from these realms, these higher realms. This was to be an intensification of those operations, an access of dynamic urge of such degree and impetus as should serve to send the hoop spinning safely down the lower slope and give it good start on its upward turn on the way towards the peaks across the valley. This has now been accomplished and the ascent is well begun. So in essence, back in 1918, we're being pushed to become more spiritual. And on this, to us, probably subconscious. And this is, for people we were probably in the spirit world at that time. Other people were incarnated, and they were said, no, we need to have more spirituality. So something large was started. Then Arnell tells us more. This commotion increased and extended as we pressed more closely around the sphere of Earth, and ever more and more they mingled in Earth's life and policies until at last they burst through. The encircling envelope, ethereal altogether, became of the economy of the world of men. So this was an emotion and a thought, a feeling that started in the 20th century. Now you can say, well, that didn't do much good. We killed millions of people, right? We had World War II. We had communism. It killed even more than World War II. We had all these horrible things. But that may have just, so again, think of spirals, right? From that, we've had relative peace, right? We've had wars all over the place. But have we had a third worldwide war yet? No. Now, hopefully that will not happen. So that was probably all done to anchor itself to say, we cannot do this again, right? This is, it was I believe that this feeling starts with a sense of lacking, right? A feeling that something is missing, which many people are experiencing today. Like the 60s generations, I said before, attempted to believe in love and all that implies, right? They had nothing, they had no foundation for it. But we have to remember that these are only skirmishes. A battle takes place. Society pushes back with all the weight of its entropy of hundreds of years. And although after the dust settled, a little progress was made. And the Reverend G. Vale Owen wished to know, was the Great War, as World War II was known at the time, was the climax? Of course, he would ask that. It was 1918. The Great War was like, you can never imagine a war. Now, this is really enlightening when Arnell tells them about that. Of that as climax. He's talking about World War I. And G. Vale Owen hasn't even, he's back in 1918. But ever increasing in force, as I have already said, this war has gone on for these past ages past. Its martyrs have been many, and many phases has the war passed through. This is when he's talking about the war of turning the ship, getting to be more spiritual, less materialism. You would count it strange were I to table to you all these in total. I name but a few of these phases, and the phase religious and theological, artistic, political, and democratic. Scientific, the warlike phase which took much vogue this last millennia as to absorb well-nigh all dynamics into its wide open maw. The good Reverend, like all of us, tend to localize great events around themselves. Where Arnell is speaking of centuries, we think in terms of years or decade. Arnell is preparing us for the future. Our future is humankind. We like to think of prophecy as boiling down to a distinct occurrence. And sometimes that's true, right? But the stronger, the irresistible prophecy is the vision of the human collective. The spirit realm is guiding us to this future. As sure as the rain falls, we shall arrive there. Arnell gives us a glimpse of the destination. For you to dwell upon the earth, is what he's saying, widespread and with large spaces unpeopled, so you are in total or still but few. We encompass the earth about on every hand, and our ranks spread backwards up through the steps and stories of the serried heavens. So we may be many, and each one of us power greater than the most of you. All well, the dawning light will send its rays aloft and search us out in our hiding places amid the light and brightness of the spheres. Then earth will feel less lonely as it rolls along the meadows of the void. Earth will know in that day that all about those meadows, fairies, plays, and elves besport themselves in the merriment, and that earth is not lonely, but at one with the myriads of the redeemed of earth who have linked up humankind with those afar, who dwell on planets, some of which you see on a clear night, and others which are not visible to you on earth. Nor will they be until you put off from your low-lying shores and sail your boat towards the open sea, towards the great expanse, towards the western region of the sun. So we are being alerted that we, humanity on earth, will join other planets to attain a balance of technology and devoutness, materialism and spirituality, wisdom and faith. As we approach those goals, we shall be assisted by other races from other planets. And in this prophecy dovetails what the prophecy stated by Francisco Xavier in the 70s, when he told us that if the Earth could live through the next 50 years, starting from July 1969, when men went to the moon, that sometime after 2019 July, the Earth would be openly visited by aliens who would render us assistance. The help from these otherworldly visitors wasn't only to be in the form of wondrous gadgets and applications, but also of the spiritual knowledge. We shall be exposed to what they have learned long ago, that we are immortal souls who reincarnate to learn and to improve, and that we begin in the spirit realm and shall ever return. So I hope that's been interesting. And I think the theme of that is for us to sit back and look at the long term, and don't think and don't be discouraged when you see these backward movements, right? Because these backward movements in our society, in our culture, and in the world are meant to instill some sort of lesson. Just like you have children, and you don't, and good parents will let their children fail, right? Because you can't guide or guard everything from those children. Sometimes it's good to let them make mistakes, right? Because if you just tell them and not let them do anything, they'll in their mind, they always think they'll do it later, right? They'll do something stupid later. But if they do something stupid today and they learn the hard way, maybe a scraped knee or be embarrassed or whatever it is, hopefully it's not too bad, then they will put that into their character and change their character. They will have learned a powerful lesson. Some of us learn the hard way. Some of us learn the easy way. All of us probably have many parts of us that have to learn the hard way. I know I most probably had to learn the hard way in life after life of being selfish on the quest for material gains. I've been told that. And hopefully, we all can learn better as we go towards the future. And this is what's so important, is for us to look at and not worry about, when is the planet going to get better? We're not going to be, first of all, know that we have to help collectively. We're all each like one grain of sand on the beach. If we each improve and we help other people improve, that future will come. It's guaranteed. It will come, but the timing is up to us. Now, we may take multiple lives to get there, but in the scheme of things, in our immortal lives, what's 1,000 years? It's nothing. Now, it's easy for me to say that, but for those living in the tragedies and sorrows and the hardships you are on a day-to-day basis, it probably means like, what is he talking about? And of course I understand that. But the more you can raise yourself up and look at the arc of not only your life, which is a millennials, right? Millennium and millennium, right? Thousands and thousands of years. And look at the arc of the life of the planet and the culture of the planet. And know that everything will get better because the spirit world is teaching us things. It's like your first grader who's being taught things, even though they don't know they're being taught, right? When they sing a song of ABCs, they're learning the ABCs. They don't know that. They're just singing a song. It's what's happening to us. We're these immature spirits who are being taught lessons. We don't understand we're being taught. And that's why one of the first things you can do with Spiritism is understand we are being taught lessons on a daily basis. How to be calm, how to control our thoughts, how to love, be charitable, be fraternal. If we can understand we're here to learn lessons, then we can look at our lives and go, okay, yeah, well, that happened. And boy, I didn't like that, but I learned a lot. And hopefully I won't have to go through that next life, right? Because if you can learn from these tragedies in your life and change your attitude and your character, right? Let's say you had a messy divorce and your spouse treated you just like horrible, took everything. If you can make the decision saying, I never want to be that to anybody. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take revenge on other innocent people. I'm not ever going to be like that person. That is an extremely valuable lesson you learn, and you are part of the future of the earth. This is where you have to understand is every time you make that next spiritual stage, the next level, you're more and more part of the earth. And as I first started, right, the earth will change. But what happens is, as a collective humanity, become more in harmony, more in tune, and have this godlike vibration, right, of love, fraternity, that we, the collective humanity, will actually raise the planet into a planet of regeneration. It won't be like, oh, you're a planet of regeneration. No, we have to be in tune with that. it sits with us and the spirits around us to be in tune with rising up. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for this wonderful time. I thank you for being with me. And I just think that I'm hoping that this has made sense for everybody. And please tell everybody, come and join Kardec Radio on Facebook page. And please share this video. Share it to your friends. Go to my website, nwspiritism.com. Click on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will put this live stream and all my other live streams I've been doing, and I'm putting shorter clips on different aspects of Spiritism on my YouTube channel. I'm hoping that will be good. Again, please remember, you can look on down at the bottom of the description of this video when I post to YouTube where you can buy this book, How We Are Guided by Spirits, Book 3 of Spiritism. I recommend that you buy Book 1 first, but the order's up to you, of course. I've had one person buy Book 2 first and really loved it. And so who knows, right? Everyone has their own approach to everything. And again, read the Spirits book. And please share our knowledge with other people. I honestly believe that Spiritism has made a big difference to me. It's made me more calm and cool. Not perfectly, yeah, I'm far from that, but at least a little bit better in not reacting, not being too emotional, not getting mad too fast, right? Because I understand these things that happen to me, to us, to my family, to people around me are all there for a good reason. Anyway, I want to say God bless everybody, and I will end our program for today.
I would like to thank everyone for listening to our program on Kardec Radio and to point you in the direction to find more information about the spirit world around us. You can visit my blog at www.nwspiritism.com, and that is www.nw as in Northwest Spirit. Come to our meeting on Bainbridge Island near Seattle in the state of Washington. Many blessings to all of you, and please continue to explore Spiritism and the spirit world around us.